Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Stefan Pretorius. I'm a teacher at Grey College here in Bloemfontein. I teach grade 12 business studies, and it is a privilege for me this morning to present to you another edition of this ICTI's course. We're starting today we're starting with business sectors and its environment. Now, the business sectors, as you can see on the screen, we have two pictures there. That one shows a mine, and the other one shows a farmland or a farming community. Now, this is not a very foreign subject for you all. I'm pretty sure that in grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, you were taught something about the different economic activities. Now, we're talking about the business sectors, and in grade 12 we are absolutely focused on only the three business sectors that you are most familiar about. Those are, of course, the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary activities. Now, we are not going to focus on the formal and the informal sectors, and we're not going to focus on the public and the private sectors. We are mainly going to focus on the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors of the economy. Now, just a quick bit of revision. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we really have to get to the more important stuff. If we look at the primary economic activities, or the primary sector, this is the type of economic activity that is concerned with the exploitation of natural resources. If you look at the picture on the screen, you can see there's a tractor or a harvester harvesting some crops, or in the picture at the bottom, there's fishing trailers that harvest fish from the sea. This is mainly primary economic activities, okay? Mining, agriculture, fishing, forestry, and so forth, okay? These materials that is harvested or mined or produced from the ground, those are then goes to the next sector. So let's absolutely focus on natural resources when we look at primary economic activities. At this stage, I would ask if there's any questions. If there is, please keep them for later, or get it to me as soon as you can. But I'm pretty sure you are very familiar with primary economic activities. We're moving along. Secondary economic activities, you can see on the picture there, that's a factory that produces metal. Now, the definition of secondary economic activities is once the raw materials is harvested or mined from the ground, then from there on it will be produced, or it will be changed into something that is useful for us. Okay, now the whole process of secondary economic activities is everything up to where the product is ready to sell to the end user. So every action that is taken to change raw material to a final product is the secondary sector. It's only the final product that would then be sold in the tertiary sector. So the definition, if you take something useful out of the primary environment or the primary sector, which can be consumed or used to make other products. The type, its secondary activities include the manufacturing industry and the construction industry. This is when you change things from a raw state into a final product which can be used. The importance of this activity to the economy, it provides many jobs. Usually large factories in our country that produce or assemble, whether it's vehicles or whatever the product might be, those provide jobs for thousands and thousands of people. Okay, one secondary sector can obviously buy materials from another secondary sector. If we think about carpentry, for example. If you would like to make a chair, a wooden chair, you can take the wood from a forest, cutting down a tree, take the wood, and then at one manufacturing plant or factory, the wood would only be cut up into beams, into usable chunks, but then it's still not a final product. Then it can be sold to a carpenter, which then takes the sizable planks or the chunks and then cut them up again, sand them, put some paint on it and screws to build this chair, and then from there on it can be sold as a final product. So one secondary sector company can buy half raw material to another secondary sector, and then the buyer of tertiary goods, who will then obviously buy the final product. Then we can get to the tertiary sector of the economy, and this is basically sales. So this is when you sell something that is final and done. So we have the primary sector, raw materials, secondary sector, where we manufacture or change the products into something useful, and then lastly, the tertiary economic activity, where this product is then distributed to a location and sold. Just think about the milk that you had over your porridge this morning. That milk had to come from a cow, somewhere not far from you, because milk goes bad within a few days. So the milk that you're drinking was in a cow just 2 days ago, 3 days ago at most. So that the milk came from the cow, from a farm, okay? Then it was pasteurized, that would be your secondary sector, and bottled, all secondary sector. And once it was bottled, it was sold to the supermarket, where you conveniently went to buy ice-cold milk in a refrigerator. And this all happened in the span of 2 days, maybe 3 days, because in 5 days' time, that milk will be bad. You understand? So the tertiary sector has a very, very large part to play because they provide the finished goods that we sell and consume. The tertiary sector is not only the sale or the selling of goods. The tertiary sector is also services that is provided. If you go to a school, the teacher teaching you, as I am at the moment, that is tertiary sector because I'm providing a service. If you are a lawyer and you provide legal services, if you're an auditor and provide financial services, if you're a hairdresser and cut people's hair, all of that is in the tertiary sector because it's part of services, which means it's part of the tertiary economic sector. Okay, I'm pretty sure the last 10 minutes provided you with a good idea of what the primary, secondary, and tertiary economic activities is. We can't spend too much time on this for the moment because there's more important things to go to, but I'm pretty sure you have a good idea of what is going on at the moment. So let's continue on. This also sounds familiar. The next step is the 3 business environments. Can you remember the 3 business environments? You know, we've done this since grade 10. You know about the micro, the market, and the macro business environment. Okay, I know your first question now. I know you're asking, sir, what does economic activities, what does the 3 sectors have to do with the 3 business environments? I'm so glad you asked. The answer will be provided within the next 40 minutes or so. Right, now the 3 business environments, let's revise this quickly, is our internal environment, it is our market environment, it is our macro environment. Do you remember those 3? We've done it just last term. We talked about the micro environment that consists of the natural the resources, the human resources, the natural resources, the culture, the structure, you remember? And then from the structure we went on to say, okay, but we know about the the financial functions, the business functions. You remember those the 8 business functions? Who could remember? Come on, break your brain a bit. Let's think. Remember the market environment, the marketing. You remember finance? Remember those? Okay. The administrative function. What about the production function, the purchasing function, human resources, public relations, and then the business, the overall management, the business management. Those are all part of the micro business environment. Do you remember those? Okay. Let's quickly go on to the market environment. Remember the next circle out? When we have the internal or the micro business environment on the inside, that is the business itself. The market environment is the immediate environment outside of the business. So let's go get back to our milk example. If you have a factory or a company that sells milk to people, who will be in our market environment? Well, first up, it would be other companies that sell milk or dairy products. So that's our competition. Do you remember that? Okay. Then we can go on from our market environment. We can go on from our competition. We can go on to our clients. If you want to pour milk over your porridge every morning, that milk, because you want milk, you are a client. You're a customer, and customers is also part of the market environment. Suppliers, people who supply your product for you, whatever you are selling or making, whether it's your raw materials or final products, that's your suppliers. Trade unions is part of it, people working for you, but people that is associating with trade unions, which is in the same industry that you are. And there are many others, intermediaries, people who deliver the products to your company, maybe a transport business, and so forth. You remember the market environment. Okay, we can continue on. Then the macro environment, that is basically our pestle. Remember pestle? Physical, economical, social environment. You remember those macroeconomic factors far outside of the business, where the business have very little influence? Legal, okay, environmental. All of the 5 pestle factors has an influence there. Or the 6 pestle factors. Okay. Now that was just a bit of revision, but I'm pretty sure you guys have this down so far. Now we can quickly look at a case study which we're going to use later on, because a business, the microenvironment, the business itself, have different levels of control over its environments. This we did in grade 11 specifically to say, but the microenvironment, the business itself, have full control over its microenvironment. So the business have control over its human resources, who they hire, who they fire. The business has full control over its marketing function, over its culture. The management of the business can manage the business within itself because it has full control. But if we go one step further, in the market environment, the business only really has limited control. It can control its market environment, but to a very, very limited state. And then lastly, the business have no control over the macro environment, the pestle factors, the physical factors, the economical factors, the social factors, and so forth. Okay, but let's quickly read the case study, and you'll see it becomes clear. John Miller has been farming for the last 40 years. During the last season, production has increased. The crops have been good, but the quality of the vegetables has been poor. Wool prices have been at an all-time highs, but the wool clip has been down due to increased stock theft. Milk production has been excellent, but prices are down and cost up. The main problem faced by John is the increased cost of fuel, electricity, and labor. Many problems are the result of whether the activities of the middleman and the government, pro-labor legislation, the introduction of new minimum wage, the farm has made a loss for the last 3 years. Okay, now, question, in which sector of the economy is John Miller? Yes, primary sector. Okay, John Miller's farm is also his micro-environment. Can you see where we're going with this? This person, Mr. Miller, he has a farm which is primary sector, but his farm as well is also his own internal microenvironment. Okay, now let's quickly have a look. John has full control over everything that happens within on his farm. Yes, he does not have control over the weather, whether it rains or not. He doesn't have control over the temperatures. But that is not internal factors. That is not microeconomic, microenvironment factors. Do you understand? He has control over his planning, his decision making, where he allocates his resources, who he hires and who he fires. He has a large degree over that, control over that. Over his market environment, okay, if he wants to sell his vegetables, okay, it depends whether there is clients who will actually want to buy those vegetables and the price that they want to buy the vegetables for. Okay, so he has control. Maybe he can raise the price or lower the price or diversify or do something, but he only has limited control over who buys his product. Okay, he has limited control over who his competition is. If there's other farmers that also has vegetables who is in competition with him that also wants to sell their products, maybe he would have to raise the price, lower the price, maybe raise the quality of the vegetables. Or if it's a low quality vegetable, he have to compete with other players in the market. You see, he has a bit of control, but he really doesn't have that much control. So again, John has a primary sector business, which is a farm. His farm, inside of the farm, he has control over everything that happens inside with the personnel, market environment, microenvironment. However, he does not have proper control over what happens just outside of the business in the market that he is in. Okay, he has limited control, but he doesn't have full control. Okay, right, now let's talk about John again. What would the degree of control be in the macro environment? Now the macro environment, can you remember? This is the pestle environment. Okay, pestle, we talk about the physical, the economical, the social, the technological, the legal, and the environmental. This business does not have any control over the weather. He has a farm, remember? He has to plant crops. He has to feed animals. If it does not rain and he does not have food, he does not have control over the rain. If international markets says, well, we are not going to buy your products. We're not going to buy vegetables from South Africa anymore because of some kind of political thing. He can't control that. Then people is not going to buy his products that he produces. You understand? So things like interest rates in the economic environment, inflation rates, exchange rates, that's things that John has almost no degree of control over. Okay, he can adapt to those changes, but he cannot control those changes. Okay, I hope this is clear for you at the moment. Now, the rest of today's lesson is going to be based on how this information is going to be asked or assessed in the exam at the end of the year and in June when we write our June exam. It is very important to look at the following graph. Okay, and we are going to go through each and every single block. There's 9 blocks there, but you'll see we'll have to do them 3 at a time. On the horizontal planes, we have our primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors of the economy. On our vertical planes, we have our micro, market, and macro environments. Are you guys still with me? Now, the questions that will be posed as part of a case study. We've read the case study. You remember John from just now. Okay, he's a farmer. He faces many problems. He plants vegetables. He has a couple of sheep that produces wool and meat for him. So he is a farmer that farms, which means he will be, if we go on, in the primary sector. Okay. Now, here is what the questions then will be. Okay. What is the micro-environmental factors that will influence a primary business like a farm? You guys see? It becomes a bit difficult, doesn't it? Okay, let's just focus now. Primary and micro. Okay. What about management? Who manages John's farm? Will he have himself, that is the general manager? Will he have shareholders that also provides expertise? Okay. Human resources. Who will make sure that the people working on his farm is well qualified? Are they well trained? What does the law says in terms of recruiting people? And what can he, and if he can control everything in the microenvironment, as we said, is he the only one who's going to decide who to hire and who to fire? Finance. The financial function. Who does his finances for him? Will he have one bank account or several bank accounts? Okay, where will he get the money from if he wants to expand? It's all questions that is asked within the micro environment. Does that make sense to you? Okay, let's go on. Marketing. Where is he going to sell his products? And how is he going to tell people or make people aware of his products that he's selling? Or is he just going to sell them where he always sold them and hope he gets the best price available? The culture within the farm. Does he have people who really believe that if on his farm they are really making a difference? Are they feeding people? What does he tell them? What do they believe? How hard do they work? Or will he be happy with a culture that just says, okay, well, you punch the clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 5 o'clock you punch out and you'll get the minimum wage you pay for. I don't care whether you like your job or hate your job. You just have to do it. You just have to do your job. You see, that's part of the culture. It's part of the microenvironment. It's things that John has full control over. If we move it along to the market environment, if you can have a look there, now we can ask a few questions. Who is John's customers going to be? Who is he going to sell his products to? Who is his competition? Is it farmers? Is those farmers also selling to the people, to the customers who buy his product? Is the customers big supermarkets, which means they buy large quantities at a time? Or does those supermarkets have very specific standards of what quality his vegetables, his meat, and his wool would be. Do you understand? So now, what about the regulators? Is there people who say, well, if you want to have sheep on your farm, and those sheep you're going to share those sheep for wool, that wool has to be at a certain standard. The sheep has to be fed a certain way, otherwise the wool is not going to be of the right quality. Maybe John is part of an association of wool merchants who sells wool or grades wool quality. The same goes for the vegetables. Same goes for the meat. You understand? So the market environment is where exactly does John fit into? Okay. Then, lastly, the macro environment. Okay. Do you remember the macro environment? Pestle. Okay. What is the challenges of John's? What is the challenges of John's farm? The weather, for example. Does he get enough rain? Should he maybe move some of his crops to other areas in the region where he gets better, where there's better rainfall? Is the soil fertility good? Is his farm big enough so that he can move vegetables from one area to another area when the nutrition in the ground is depleted? It's all outside of his control. How about the international environment? What if businesses say, but we don't want to do business with South Africa? Because in South Africa there's violence, in South Africa there's no laws, in South Africa, how is he going to adapt to a business phoning him up and saying, well, we cannot do business with your country anymore because the laws prohibit it? What if the exchange rate is so high or so low that the business cannot sell their goods to foreign countries? Is those vegetables just going to rot? Is the wool, is the textile industry maybe on a strike? It's all things that John cannot control. Okay, so I hope we are happy with, we are done with John and his primary sector, because we have to move along to a new company which we call Pilot Furniture. This is a furniture company, and yes, you guessed it, in the secondary sector. So now we're moving towards the secondary sector. The company, Pilot Furniture, was formed in 1948. In 1967, the factory was moved to Babalegi, the industrial area of Hammanskraal, about 35 kilometers north of Pretoria. The present owners acquired the company in 1986. In 2003, the company was changed to its present name of Pilot Furniture Manufacturers Pty Limited. In 2004-2005, a second and a considerably larger factory was added, more than doubling the size of the factory to more than 40,000 square meters. The company specializes in mass production of case goods furniture, such as bedroom suites, wardrobes, wall units, TV stands, and kitchen units. Our goods are sold nationally throughout South Africa and its neighboring countries to registered furniture retailers. We have our own transport division and deliver across the whole of South Africa. We pride ourselves on the rapid turnaround from the receipt of order to delivery thereof. At present, the company employs approximately 600 staff members who live locally and is one of the largest employers in the area. Remember, we said the secondary sector have a lot of provide a lot of jobs. You can see there's a picture of a carpenting of Pilot Furniture. We employ approximately 600 people spread amongst all different divisions: manufacturing, transport, administration. Many of these employees have been with us for 15 years and more are highly experienced in the furniture manufacturing industry. The company recognizes the importance of good staff relations and assists staff in all ways possible where necessary. The factors and transport staff are from the immediate vicinity of Hammanskraal, and we are one of the largest employers in this area and contribute significantly to the local community. So people living in Hammanskraal are very appreciate the factory very much because it provides jobs for many people. Now we can have a look at the secondary sector. Now let me just quickly clarify this. This competition, clients and suppliers, that goes under the market environment name. We will get to that in a second. Now, could you remember the microenvironment? What does Pilot Furniture have at its disposal within the micro environment? Again, if we go back to our first one, the culture, the HR, the finance, the resources, the marketing. To name a few. What about purchasing? Maybe we can talk about purchasing a bit. Maybe we could talk about manufacturing or production a bit. So if we talk about the microenvironment within this secondary sector business, which is a manufacturing business, we can ask a few questions. Again, human resources. John should have a human resource manager. You cannot employ 600 people if you do not have proper human resource people who manage those people, manage their contracts, manage their leave. When can they go on holiday, and when do they have to work? When do they get paid overtime? Contracts, salaries, labor disputes. I mean, his HR function, Pilot Furniture's HR function, should be extremely well managed. Okay. Next up, what about the finances? Where did Pilot Furniture get money to buy the second factory that they built? You see, how does they produce? What does the production line go on? Where do they get the knowledge of a production line that is very efficient, effective, and least cost effective? You see, it's all questions asked in the microenvironment of a secondary sector business. Can you see there's different questions from the microenvironment on a secondary sector business than there is of the microenvironment in a primary sector business or a tertiary sector business? You understand? You have to understand that this is the questions that is going to be asked, the issues that's going to be raised from a case study like the one we've just read. If we quickly look at the market environment, who is the clients, who's the competition, and who's the suppliers, who's the regulators of this secondary, of this market environment? So Pilot Furniture, in the case study, we can derive, we can say, okay, they say that they supply to all major furniture retailers. So maybe Joshua Door or At Home or Mr. Price Home, or maybe big furniture companies will buy their furniture from them. So that would be their clients. Who would be their competition? How are they going to face the competition? Is it only a question of prices versus quality? Maybe it's effective intermediaries. Remember, intermediaries, it's not mentioned here under our market environment. It's not mentioned there. But how do you transport raw material to your factory? And how do you transfer the finished product to the retailer? You see, it's different questions that the market environment has of a secondary sector business than the market environment has of the primary sector business. This is the questions that you're going to find that you're going to get in the year-end exam or in the June exam, and this is the questions that you're going to have to respond to. Now we're going to the macro environment, and you see it's very interesting. There's many different questions the microenvironment has to ask on the secondary sector than it has on the primary sector. The market environment, where there's limited control, some of the questions will be the same. Some of the questions will be the same, but most of them will be different. In the market environment, what influence does that have on a primary sector business? Different questions, some of them the same, some of them different, but on the secondary sector. But when we get to the macro environment, when we get to the macro environment, the questions that the macro environment asks of the secondary sector is very much the same, not exactly the same, but very much the same as the questions that is asked from the primary sector. Because neither the primary sector, nor the secondary sector, nor the tertiary sector has any control over the macro environment. Does that make sense to you for a moment? So a primary sector like John Miller, who has his wool and his vegetables and his meat, his mutton, if the interest rates goes up, he has to adapt to that. It's a macro environmental fact and he can do nothing about it. The same with pilot furniture. If we talk about pilot furniture in the macro environment, if the international environment says, well, we are not going to buy furniture from South Africa, we'll rather buy it from somewhere else, neither John in his primary sector or pilot furniture in the secondary sector can do anything about the macro environment. It has no control over it. It will obviously adapt much differently because it's different sectors of the economy. One company will try to adapt differently to it. The farmer will adapt differently to it than the private company that we read of. But the fact is the influence is still the same. Okay, so in the macro environment, just please remember pestle. Okay, remember technological. If the technology changes in the micro environment, the primary sector will adapt differently to it than the technology changes in the secondary sector. Or maybe there's big technological advances in the secondary sector, but very small technological advantages in the primary sector, which will obviously pose very different questions. I hope these things are starting to make sense for you just before we get to our last case study. Everybody ready? Right. Let's talk about the OK. Okay. Right. Since the takeover of OK and Centra groups by Shoprite Checkers, the franchise market in South Africa, to meet the needs of this expanding and increasingly competitive market, OK, Centra and Shoprite have been combined to form a new franchise group, the OK Franchise Division. The OK Grocer brand is managed by the OK Franchise Division as grocery and food outlets. Now, you've all been to an OK Grocer. OK Grocer supermarkets portray a modern, aesthetically pleasing and service-orientated image. The layout of each OK Grocer outlet is planned in a cost-effective way. The aim of the planning is to exploit every possible sales and profit opportunity through optimum customer flow and product exposure. To qualify as an OK Grocer supermarket, the outlet must, over and above the normal groceries, toiletries, essential households, hardware, fruit, vegetables department, have at least 3 of the following in-house services: a bakery, butchery, deli, fast food, or home meal replacements. The OK Grocer stores can also have a wine department, and additionally, franchisees have the option to open an Enjoy OK liquor store, which has a minimum trading area of 80 square meters. Price benefits: franchises enjoy tremendous benefit over competitors as they acquire goods at Shoprite Checkers at negotiated prices on a national and regional basis. Simple accounting: Okay, grocer franchisees deal with a single account, compromising a consolidation of the normal and the net account. This simplifies the financial side of businesses, payment within 30 days of statement. Cash and stock control. Our supermarkets have scanning systems which with sophisticated programs that have a franchisee complete control over stock and point of sales or point of purchases. Now we can go on. You see again, this pestle has to be there under the macro environment. So we're going to ask a few questions on the macro environment. Now, let's go on. Let's start from the beginning. Micro environment, again, within OK. Okay. So now we have the OK grocer, the grocery store. Inside the business, you find fruits, vegetables, you find many, you find toiletries, you have a bakery, a butchery, maybe a homemade meal. But that is all within the micro environment. What are the challenges of the micro environment? Obviously, there's not as many people that work in a grocery store as they would on a farm or in the furniture manufacturing factory. But there will still be a few people that work there. So maybe HR, human resources, is not that important. Management is very important, because management have to keep an eye on everything that happens there, because there's actually the customers is actually walking into the store. That's what we read in the case study, a very service-orientated interior. So when you walk into the grocery store, it has to look nice. It has to be clean. You have to feel that this is a place where I can shop. You see, very different challenges from the primary sector. Very different challenges from the secondary sector. No customer ever walks into a secondary sector business. Maybe one or two, but it's not the same as a grocery store where people constantly walk in, get a product, pay for it, and leave. You understand? Many, many different aesthetics all of a sudden counts for a lot. When we look at the microenvironment of the tertiary sector, purchasing becomes extremely important. Because if you purchase milk as a grocery store, if you purchase milk from the primary sector or from the secondary sector, that milk cannot be there more than 5 to 6 days. The milk will go off. So you have to know exactly how much milk to buy for which period for a allotted period of time before you're going to maybe throw it away because it goes bad. You see many, many different questions. Let's talk about finances. How do you, where will you get the finances to buy extra stock or put in a new unit or provide a new service as a grocer? How about sales? Point of sales. How about the administrative system? We read in the case study that the franchise gives very advanced software or computers so that the point of sale system is scanned and every product that leaves the store is accounted for and the money received immediately. You see, that is all part of the micro environment of the tertiary sector. Again, very different questions. Very different questions from microenvironment towards the tertiary, towards the secondary, and towards the primary sector. If we go on into the market environment, who will be in the market environment? Do you remember? Let's go quickly go back. Market environment, we have competition, clients, and suppliers under the market environment. So if we ask questions about the market environment, about an OK grocer, who would be their market environment? Will it only be the people that is situated or lives in the area of that grocery store? Or will it maybe it will be students who goes there for lunch every day? Maybe we should have pre-packed lunches for people just to come and buy a hot lunch every day. Maybe that's a service we can provide for them. Or is the area where we live Do we need to market our goods more? Meaning put up posters, maybe a television advertisement. How are we going to make our customers come to our grocery store? Loss of something else maybe. What about the competition? Do we really compete? Does OK compete with Spar? Do they compete with Pick n Pay? Do they compete with Checkers? How do they get their prices lower than their competition? Is it possible just to ask for discount and get it when you buy your products from the secondary or from the primary sector? And how are they going to compete constantly? Or maybe they cater for a different market. Maybe they will have cheaper goods on their shelves so that people that lives on a tighter budget can buy. You see, very, very different questions from the market environment. Okay, maybe last question, who are the intermediaries? Who is the company that supplies their goods? Do they have their own trucks that go fetch goods from the secondary sector? Because their goods are hauled out of there by the customers themselves. They don't have any costs when it comes to delivering the products. They just have costs acquiring the products. Lastly, we're finishing up the macro environment, and again, now we're asking many of the same questions. Okay, let's go back to Pestle. We go back to Pestle again. Physical. Maybe there's not that much of the physical environment. Maybe the tertiary business, if it's winter time, they will sell more hot coffee and hot chocolate and hot beverages. And in the summertime, they will sell cold beverages, like cool drinks and soft drinks and so forth. And maybe they should purchase more of the one and the other, depending on the season. Economical, we all know that food prices the last few years have rocketed. I mean, the food prices is almost 40% more expensive than it was 2 years ago. The food inflation is absolutely extraordinary. And it's the same question for the primary, secondary, and tertiary sector. How are we going to adapt to the macroeconomic factor if inflation goes up on food on our specific grocery store? The social factors, we've seen in the secondary sector. Remember Pilot Furniture? They employ 600 people. So the people living in the environment, living in the same suburb, there's 600 people that is actually employed, that actually contributes to the wealth of that community. Understand? Same here. What about the social factors in the tertiary? If we have an OK grocer, how does the people when does the people come and buy? Is the people that work there the same people that lives there? Is the OK grocer committed to social upliftment in the community? Anything about social factors questions can be asked. Technological, we've talked about the technological environment. If there's better point of sales or point of purchases technology that is developed, that can be installed, how much is it going to cost? Is it worth it? Is the profit we're going to make, is that going to be better than the actual expense that we have to acquire? Legal, what legal regulations are there? Is it very important to sell goods within the expiry date? Who regulates it? What is the legal implications if people get sick from the food that we sell them? Okay, in the environmental factors, how is the environment? How rich or how poor is the people living in the environment where we sell our things? You see, so this is then the macroeconomic factors, and this roughly concludes our session for today. I understand. You are on grade 12 now, and I would just as a final word, just quickly make you aware. In grade 12, we are not going to ask you what is the primary sector, what is the secondary sector, what is the tertiary sector. We are not going to ask you what is the micro market and macro environment. Those were done in grade 10 and grade 11. We're not going to ask you how much control does the micro environment have over the macro environment. But what we are going to ask you is how does the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, how does it relate to the micro, macro and micro market and macro environment. I hope this is clear because the questions is going to feature like this. Read your case studies, use your textbooks, and I hope you do well. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.